Hello everyone, my name is Alan Kutsia and I'm a New Zealand licensed immigration advisor. I work for Choose New Zealand. We are an education and migration consultancy based in Auckland, New Zealand. And this is part 3 of a 5-part video series about how to become a New Zealand international student. If you haven't watched the prior 2 videos, please do that now. But I warn you that this part of the series is quite a bit more advanced and complicated than the other videos. So if it's a bit too much for you, you might need to watch this video again. Otherwise, feel free to just skip this part 4 if you're not interested. So today we're talking about funds. What do I mean by funds? Sufficient funds means the amount required for you to be approved a student visa to New Zealand. All student visa applicants must have sufficient funds, usually in the form of a bank statement, to pay for tuition fees, living costs, and outward travel from New Zealand back to their country. So, tuition fees, this is the money that you pay the course provider to study the course. If you're applying from your own country, you would first apply for the student visa and later pay the tuition fees. However, if you are in New Zealand now, you would first pay the tuition fees and then later apply for the student visa. So living costs, this is the money needed for your rent, food, and other daily expenses. Immigration New Zealand calculates the required amount at $1,250 per month of study. So for example, if your course is 4 months long, you will need $5,000 in living cost funds in your bank account. If your course, however, is longer than 9 months, it's better to round up to the nearest year. So, for example, if your course is 10 or 11 months, you should still have a whole year of living cost funds, or $15,000. Outward travel from New Zealand, this is the amount needed to buy a plane ticket back to your country if needed. We usually recommend about New Zealand $2,000. However, it depends on the price of tickets at the time you're applying for the visa. Okay, so let's look at 3 examples of international students, and I want you to tell me how much funds are required. So our first example is Hichiro. She lives in Japan. She is a citizen of Japan, and she wants to apply for a 2-year course in New Zealand. Now, it's important to note that a student visa will only usually be for 1 year. Therefore, she will get a 1-year student visa, and she will renew it to complete her 2-year course. Now, my question to you is this. Does she require enough funds for tuition and living costs for the entire 2-year course? Or does she only need enough funds for the 1-year duration of her visa? 1 year of funds or 2 years of funds? The answer is 1 year of funds is sufficient. She needs to show she has enough money for her first year of tuition fees, plus 1 year of living costs and an extra $2,000 for a plane ticket. Our second example is Liya. She is Ethiopian and lives in Ethiopia. She wants to apply for a 2-year course, so very similar to Hichiro. So same question, does she require enough funds for 1 year, or does she need to show enough funds for 2 years of tuition fees and living expenses? Now for Liya, I would recommend that she show enough funds for both years of study. The reason falls down to risk. Japanese citizens have a student visa decline rate of 1%, whereas Ethiopian citizens have a decline rate of 50%. Therefore, just to make the application as safe as possible, I would recommend that Liya provide enough funds to study the entire course and not just enough for the 1-year duration of her visa. Our final example is Francesca from Italy. She's in New Zealand now on a working holiday visa. She wants to study a 10-month course costing $23,000. How much funds are required? Well, she needs $15,000. That's for 1 year of living costs. Even though her course is 10 months long, any course longer than 9 months, you need to round up to the nearest year. And she needs $2,000 for a plane ticket back home. What about her tuition fees then? Well, she is applying from within New Zealand, so she will have paid her tuition fees before applying for the visa. Okay, so you can see that calculating sufficient funds is not straightforward, but not only that, we need to show that the funds are genuine. What do I mean by genuine? Funds must have been available to the applicant for about 6 months prior to applying. In some circumstances, you may take a bank loan immediately before applying for the visa, but Do be very careful, conditions apply, so inquire with us before you run off to the bank and get a loan for your studies in New Zealand. And one more small point, the funds may be held in your bank account or a family member's bank account. Friends' bank accounts may be acceptable, but we don't recommend it as it adds risk to the application. So now let's look at 3 examples. We have Manjit, Amandeep, and Ayush. They are all Indians. They live in India, and they are applying for the same course. They all lodged their applications on the 1st of July 2020. Now we've calculated their required funds. They need a total of $29,000 New Zealand, which is about 1.3 million Indian rupees. You will find that they all have sufficient funds. However, are their funds genuine? Can we trace them back for the last 6 months? So our first example is Manjit. This is his bank statement from his savings account. We can see on the date he applies, he has enough money to apply for the student visa, over 1.3 million rupees. The question is this: does the money have 6 months history? We can see from the bank statement that he's held the money since January, therefore we have 6 months history. The funds are sufficient and they are genuine. He may apply for the visa. Our second example is Amandeep. She has 1.5 million rupees, so more than enough funds to fund for her studies in New Zealand. Do the funds have 6 months history? Well, we see that the funds were actually deposited 1 month ago via our 1.5 million rupee bank transfer. So we only have 1 month history. With this bank statement alone, she would be almost guaranteed a visa decline. So if she were my client, I would ask her, where did the money come from? And she tells me, well, it was a bank transfer from my father. So now we have an easy solution. We just get the father's bank statement. We see that the funds were held there for over 6 months. So by providing both bank statements, the applicant's and her father's bank statements, we have a clear 6-month money trail. The funds are sufficient and they are genuine. She may apply for the visa. Our final example is Ayush. So Ayush is similar to Amandeep, the previous candidate. He has 1.5 million rupees, but the funds were deposited 1 month ago via a cash deposit, a cash gift from his mother. Now we have a big problem. How do we prove that the cash belonged to his mother? He says it was a gift, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe he stole the money, for example. We cannot prove that the money was his mother's, therefore we cannot show that the funds are genuine. Ayush's only option would be to wait another 6 months, 5 months rather, until his funds have 6 months history, and then he can apply for the visa. So here's a quick summary of the contents of this video. I know it was a lot to take in, but do remember that we are here to help. This is part of our job. So if you have any questions, any doubts about your funds and you would like us to help, get in touch with us. We can handle the whole application process from start to finish, choosing the right course to getting the visa approval. Do get in touch with us. Here are our contact details, our website, email. We have a Facebook as well. And we look forward to hearing you soon. And I look forward to seeing you again for part 4 of this 5-part video series on getting a student visa and becoming an international student for New Zealand. See you next time.